Hi, so a friend of mine wrote to me recently actually about cryptocurrencies, and it set me off thinking about cryptocurrencies. Now, money is a curious thing, hey, and there's basically three kinds of money. You've got commodity money, representative money, and fiat money. Fiat money is from the Latin, let it be done. Now, commodity money is really easy to understand. Commodity money is where the thing you're exchanging has real value in itself. So you can take a couple of horses and swap them for a cart, or a couple of cows and swap them for a house, or a bag of hooves and get a cup of coffee, that kind of thing. It's a real commodity that has some value, some real value. Now, for some reason, we think gold and silver has real value. I mean, to me, gold is just a lump of useless metal that's good for looking pretty in electrical contacts, and that's about it. But we agree that gold has real value in itself. And so for a very long time, gold and silver coinage was a commodity money. But of course, it gets to be a pain lugging around all that gold and silver to pay for things, particularly if you're going sailing somewhere. So a representative money came in. Now, it came in China ages ago, actually, and was used in the Middle Ages in Europe, and it's been used right up until about the sort of 1950s or so. Representative money is where it's backed by a commodity. And you used to see it on the banknotes. I promise to pay the bearer of such and such. Whatever the banknote value was. Now, it may be a bit apocryphal, but here in the UK it was said that if you take your note down to the Bank of England, they had to exchange that legally for an equivalent amount of gold. So it was backed by a real commodity of some kind or other, usually gold, and that's what the gold standard was all about. But of course, that equally became an issue when it came to things like war debt, that sort of thing. And so most currencies, in fact just about all of them, have been removed from the gold standard, and now they've become, in reality, fiat money. Fiat money only has value because we believe it does, we trust that it does. Fiat money can be exchanged for goods and services, and other people accept it, and that's where it gets its trust and faith and value from. Of course, that makes it tremendously unstable, and you must remember the Weimar Republic hyperinflation, the loss of value that China suffered in 1945, the current situation in Venezuela. You can get these hyperinflation where the trust is lost and money loses its value, or rather fiat money loses its value. Now, cryptocurrency fits rather nicely into that little historical outline, because cryptocurrency is a fiat money. It's a money that has value because we believe that it does. We expect people to take it in exchange. We can buy goods and services with it. We can swap it with people for an idea of value. And that's where cryptocurrency comes from. But of course, cryptocurrency has an issue. With fiat money that's in general circulation, like the dollar or the pound, it's backed by a government, and so there's a great deal of trust. I mean, trusting the government, but we certainly trust the money that they issue, and it's backed by them and supposedly backed by the populace, and so there's a lot of trust in it because people can exchange it and people have belief in it. With cryptocurrency, it is relatively new, and so building trust in a cryptocurrency to give it value is quite a task to do. There are two kinds of ways of doing that, and initially one way was approached, and that was the idea of scarcity. If a thing is perceived to have value and yet is scarce, then we are supposed to want it, and that's supposed to push its value up. And this idea of mining currency and how difficult it was to get it gave it an idea of scarcity. I mean, it's not real anyway, so it can't be scarce, but it has this concept of scarcity attached to it. And of course, the other thing is value behind it. How do we get people to believe that it has value? Now, one of the things that they do is they've been trying to back up cryptocurrencies with various bags of things, like ideas, or maybe a scheme, or maybe a development of a project, something like that, anything that will give it the idea of value. And of course that value isn't ad hoc, that value has to be something we believe in. So there's a whole raft of cryptocurrencies that were launched on the idea of energy generation. That came around about 10 years, 5 to 10 years ago. You got a lot of companies setting up saying that they had a cryptocurrency, and it was backed by an energy generation machine, and they came out. Now, one of the opposites to this, of course, is that there is no legislation, or trivial legislation, governing cryptocurrencies, which is one of the things that appeals about it, because it's decentralized, it's not under centralized control, and so it can be appealing because there's no way of stopping the transfer or seizing your assets or all that kind of stuff. So it does have a great deal of appeal from that. But it also is unregulated, and there's one thing we should have learned by now with all the unregulated stuff, is that self-regulation just doesn't work. I mean, you see it all the time. You see it in doctors and police and journalists. If you have a body that attempts to regulate itself, at some stage or other, that self-regulation falls down. Now, with cryptocurrency, because there's so many people who can come into the cryptocurrency world and there is no regulation about it, of course you get a whole host of people who are basically just scam artists. Now, they're not alone, hey? I mean, an awful lot of market trading is that. It's like gambling. So a gambler, and you'll get stories and films about how somebody lives of being a gambler. Somebody will tell you a story about their cousin who always gambles and he makes an absolute fortune, but it's just rubbish. It's apocryphal, and mostly there's just films made for entertainment purposes. In reality, a gambler always loses. You see it all the time. The only person who wins in gambling is the house. And the house always wins because they take everything that lands on the number 0. It's effectively a commission. When you're thinking about stock trading, of course stocks go up and down and you can win or lose in stock trading, but there's one group that always wins, and that's the person who buys and sells the stocks. And they always win because they don't put their own money in, they take a commission on the buying and the selling of the stock, so they always win. It's very similar with some of these sham cryptocurrencies. They take a commission based on what it is that they're doing, or they take a slice of the pie based on what it is they're doing. And it's terribly like a Ponzi scheme. You know, if you invest in something, then you get your return on investment because you spread the investment down to the next level, and then the next level, and effectively the people at the bottom get nothing because they're paying the money up to the people who invested early. And it really becomes an exercise in shifting the money from the bank balances of OAPs, pensions and mothers' college funds into the bank accounts of the people at the top of the scheme. Now, Ponzi schemes are now illegal, but that went on for a very long time, and there's a big essence or a big smell in cryptocurrencies of that. And that is harsh for cryptocurrencies per se, because I don't disagree with the idea. As I say, it's just fiat money, really. But it's harsh on them in that fiat money relies almost entirely on belief in its value. And when you have a self-regulating body that can't regulate itself and a bunch of scam artists feeding off the edges, it degrades the trust tremendously in fiat money. Now, Bitcoin enjoyed a period in the sun when good old Elon chucked a load of money at them. It must have hurt when he took it back again, but they enjoyed a period in the sun because that gives us faith that not that the money has value, but the money can be used, that merchants will accept it, that other people will accept it, and so it can become a medium of exchange in the same way that our banknote is at the moment, and it would become a medium of exchange that was decentralized. So there is, to my mind, a core of good thinking at the center of cryptocurrencies, but the issue with them is that they're surrounded by people who are attempting to self-regulate and just aren't, and there's an awful lot of people who are trying to jump on the bandwagon with various schemes to make money out of you. And that's where my issue comes with cryptocurrency. It's not with the idea itself. I think the idea itself is fine. It comes because it's unregulated, which is, of course, an anathema to most cryptocurrency people. It attempts to be self-regulated and, of course, is going to fail in that. Now, being aware of that meant that cryptocurrencies started looking around for things that could give them value, so that it would take away trust from the equation because there was something of real value in there. And we've developed something, or something has been developed, called non-fungible tokens, or NFTs. Now, they started as being an artwork. So the idea was that this artwork had value in itself, and you could split it up and use that to back something as a medium exchange, basically a cryptocurrency. Now, NFTs don't necessarily need to be an artwork, of course. They can be the same thing. They can be an idea, they can be a generation project, they can be a carbon sequestration project. There's a whole lot of projects that they could actually be that would back a cryptocurrency. So NFTs are attempting to give value and take trust out of the equation. But there is another little issue there, and that issue is actually exemplified quite nicely by the subprime mortgage scheme. The subprime mortgage scheme was a collection of mortgages that had a likelihood of failure. They either had a high likelihood, a medium likelihood, or the people were going to pay. So it was an ABC. And they would take these ABCs and put them into a bag that they called a financial instrument, and they could buy the likelihood of somebody failing on paying their mortgage back as a degree of the mix of ABC in that bag. Now, that's not too different, if you think about it, from NFTs. And of course, the subprime mortgage collapsed completely because, again, it was based on what people do rather than what we think people will do. Now, people always say, yes, but if. And if is one of those words that ignores the reality of the situation. I mean, if the sun shone all day, chocolates grew on trees, and children were happily playing in the park, it would be a wonderful world. That is very true. But the sun doesn't shine all the time. Chocolates do not grow on trees, and kids scrape their knees and cry. So if ignores the reality of the situation. So if people could behave sensibly, then cryptocurrency is a valuable medium of exchange. The problem is, of course, people can't. Now, I'm not talking about individuals, I'm talking about a spread of people. Within 1 million people, you'll always get a group of people who are scrupulously honest. The bulk of people will be honest most of the time and bend the rules a little bit every now and then. But you always get that group of people who are perfectly dishonest, and they are out to scam you. And the thing is, you don't know. If you lined those people out and looked at their faces, you would not know who those people were. The reality of the situation is people like that exist. And you see them coming into the market. So you see them coming into actual stock market. There are stock market traders who are just there to scam you from your money. And there are cryptocurrency people who are just there to take your money. They don't give a toss about anything else. They just want the money from you and in their bank account. And of course that means we have to be circumspect about the whole lot of them. And that is the issue with fiat money. With fiat money, like cryptocurrencies, because of the lack of regulation, we have to be hypersensitive about what the particular scheme that's being proposed to you is. Now, for me, the current state of affairs is that it's too unregulated. There are too many chances of you losing your money to unscrupulous people to have much to do with it. And when something fails, it usually fails dramatically. So if you get involved in it, particularly if you're setting one up, then you're going to get coloured quite badly by that brush from the unscrupulous people who are at the edges of this doing it. And that will colour people's view of you quite horribly for a very long time. So you need to be super, super careful about that if you're going to be thinking about setting up a cryptocurrency. And if you're going to be thinking about taking part in a cryptocurrency, again, you need to be super careful about what it is that's going on behind it. So in summary, cryptocurrency actually is very little more than fiat money. That's all it is. It needs some sense of its trust and value being improved. And to my mind, there is no real trust or real value in cryptocurrencies of fiat money at this point in time. The idea that if that were taken away, it would be a good medium of exchange, oh yeah, I agree with that. But if is a pretty big word, and I'm just going to wait and see what happens with cryptocurrencies. Because as my friend pointed out, in time, if this has value, it will sort itself out. And the things that have real value will be left over and all the rubbish will wither away. Yeah, that's very true. And if that happens, then cryptocurrency has value. At the moment, I think it's worth waiting to see Anyway, I thought I'd share those ideas with you. I hope it was of interest. Thank you very much for watching, and please remember to like and subscribe.